Hey everyone, it's Daniel Bentink, and today we will be making this laser effect with particles. Alright, so jumping in, I have this sort of particle accelerated tube model that I made in my last video. It's just a quick model based off a couple images that I had, not too complex. But this is basically what we're going to be using for our laser beam to collide with and bounce off of. So we'll jump right in. So we'll keep it simple, just go over the particle system. So first we'll start by adding a circle. Now, first thing is, I actually want my particle beam to actually bounce onto each one of these panels here. So, and if we were to count them, we would see that I actually have 27 panels going all the way around. And so for that, I actually want to spawn in a circle with Control A and have 27 vertices. That way it matches. Alright, so we've got our 27 vertices, and we'll first rotate that so it aligns with our tube. Let's just move it back. And then let's stick the particle, move over to the particle tab here, and we'll press the plus for a new particle system. Let's name this. Alright, laser beam. Alright, so let's try and play that, see what happens. So we'll press the play on our timeline. It's spilling. Okay, so to fix that, because we don't actually want, what we can see is gravity is having an effect on it. So to take that effect away, alright, sorry about that. I'm just checking my microphone. Alright, to take that effect away, we'll go to field weights and we'll turn gravity to 0. So now, if we play this, there we go. And the other thing that I want to do is to actually increase our velocity here in the velocity tab. So we'll go to normal and we'll just crank that up. Let's go to 60, make it really fast. We want these particles shooting out. It's a crazy laser beam. So we want them shooting out really fast. Alright, so they're going, yeah, they're going a long way. Alright. Let's actually increase the particles. So I'll go something like 30,000 to start with. And how many particles you can have all depends on your system and how powerful it is. So be careful with it, it might crash, so just remember to save often. Alright, yes, we can see we've got a very dense beam now. And just to show you what this looks like, because you guys probably aren't sold on it yet, let's go to the shader editor, and I'll just... Actually, yes, that's our next step. We've got to add in our object, which we want our laser to be emitting, or our emitter to be emitting. Right now, it's just the generic particles. So our object is going to be an icosphere, and we'll spawn in an icosphere at subdivision level 1, just to make it as low as possible. And now we want to go back to our particle system. So click on our circle with the particle system, and then go to render. This is basically the tab that shows what we are going to see from the particle system. So it's set to halo by default, and we want it to be an object. Now here we have this pop up, our instance object. We want to choose our icosphere. Alright, now I just realized that we've got a bunch of shapes in here because all this stuff is separate. So for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to select everything except for my icosphere. Control J, and except for our particle system. So Control to deselect that. All right. Control J to join, and then that's all simply one object. All right. There we go. Now that's out of the way, we can come back to our particle system and have our object, icosphere. There we go. Now if we play this, yep, we can see our particle system is emitting a trail of these icospheres bunched up together because we've got so many of them. I'll just turn my mass down because we want these laser beams to be really light. That's really most of the settings we want to change. Yep, we've got our small beam. Now you can change the size. So if we've got object scale set on, so if we actually scale this up, changes the size of our beam, as you can see. But we'll leave it the way it is. Now, alrighty. And this is what I wanted to show you. So, I'm in cycles. Let's get out of that. I get worried sometimes that it's going to crash when there's a lot of stuff when I render in cycles, especially in the viewport. So let's save with particles. All right. Now, let's grab, our shader editor. So we select our icosphere over here because this is our object that we're emitting. So we go to the Materials tab here, click New, and we've got our shader here. And we just want to delete the principle that it spawns in automatically, and spawn in with Shift A, go to Shaders, and get an emission shader. Alright, so I don't know why I added a texture in, it's just habit, I guess. We just want our straight emission. Let's go to Rendered View. I did it again, sorry about that. Go to the Render tab up here and change our engine to Eevee, just to keep things simple. Our rendered view, this is just, if you click Z, you have all these options. Go to rendered mode. And we've got our emission icosphere right here. So if we click bloom in the render settings, that gives us our glow effect for our bright objects. And we'll just increase the emission in our shader. And we've got this nice bright shader. Looks lovely. And as you can see, that creates a cool beam. And we can make this whatever color we want. Look at it, looks like a blue lightsaber now. Pretty awesome. Green. Green was always my favorite color for lightsabers. But red, that's pretty cool. Anyway, we'll stick with blue, I guess. Alright. So that's looking pretty cool. Now to actually make it bounce off of this object we have, this particle accelerator tube. Alright, so if we go to, so we want to select our object that we want things to bounce, that our particles to bounce off of, and we want to go to the physics tab, which is here, this little circle with something going around it. This tab here, and we want to click collision, and that's pretty much all we need to do. Just double check any settings. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And now let's just start with this, show you guys that it's working. We'll just point this at the tube and it just bounces off. So if we pause that, let's go into rendered view. So let's play this. Boom, pew pew pew, let it go. Beautiful. So already we have something working here, and it's pretty quick and cheap as long as you keep your object fairly low poly that you're using to emit. You could probably even go lower poly than this, but I just wanted to go with this level 1 icosphere. But it does mean you need quite a lot of particles, which is where it gets expensive, so that you can have something that looks like a beam. Because if you don't have enough, you get something that looks more like what we had in the beginning. Let's play that. Yeah, and they're not bunched up close enough. But, you know, you could use that for something that's interesting. In fact, you could have, like, probably spaceships. If you chose a spaceship model as an emitter and have them, like, going through a space station or something, that'd be pretty cool. Or traffic. That's a really great thing to use particles for. But that's not what we're doing. Let's just undo all that. Undo our rotation. There we go. Save. All right. So now the other thing we want to add in is a cone. So I'm going to add in a cone because this is what all the beams are going to bounce off of to distribute around our panels. So we want to have the same amount of edges as our as the number of panels we have, like we did with the emitter. So 27, and then we want to rotate this on x-axis -90, and then move that up. Now if we take a look at this, all right, now this is going to take a bit. So what we've got now is just what we're emitting from is basically the center of where all our vertices are on our emitter right here. So we've got all our vertices here and our emitter is in the center. We actually want to change this in our particle system so that it actually goes from our vertices. So let me just find that. Where is it? Emit from source here. And it's emitting from faces. So that's basically finding the center. But there actually are no faces, that's why it's finding the center. We want to change that to vertices. And now we actually want to have all these vertices separate. So to do that very quickly, I'm going to go into edit mode, select everything with A, and delete. So we want to choose only edges and faces so that we're going to keep only our vertices. So we want to get rid of the edges. And then that makes all of these vertices separate so that we can press P to separate, and we'll go by loose parts. So if we do that, now all our vertices are now separate. So it's put the particle system on each one of those separate objects, which is just a vertice. It's actually become a lot slower now because now it's put our particle system of 30,000 on each. So now we have 27 particle systems of 30,000. So let's actually lower that. There we go. So they're all using the same particle system, so any change you make here will be affected for all of them, which is great. So now we've quickly done that, and we have multiple beams. But the problem is it's going off the normal of the vertice, which I guess by default is outwards. So we see it shoot outwards. So to fix that, I'm actually going to get all... Oh, this looks like I moved something. There we go. I'm going to select all these vertices. Oh man, looks like select doesn't... Yep. Shift select. Sorry. Select all our... It's been a bit of a pain for some reason. There we go. Alright, select all of them, go into edit mode, and we'll actually just extrude. So let's press E and scale out. And let's select all and extrude again, but this time we'll rotate with R and press Y to rotate on the Y axis just to create some faces. Okay, and we'll see how we did there. So now we've got faces and we can set it to emit from the faces again. So this should be straight. There we go. It's actually going the wrong way. So let's rotate all our objects still selected. And as long as you have the origin point here from median point, it will get the median point of all the objects combined. So then you can rotate on the X 180 degrees and it will rotate them together as a circle. Alright. So now, for our cone, we also want to add collision so that they bounce off that. So that has collision now. And let's see how we go. Alright, we have all our beams. It's actually a bit not quite making it, so let's push it further up. There we go. Alright, we have something. Let's actually increase our emitter to, where is it? Oh man, I'm blanking. There we go, here. Sorry, I'm not paying attention. Alright. We have, yes, we got a bit, we wanted a bit more dense than that. So let's go 9,000. There we go. It's getting a little slow. Like I said, it's going to depend on your hardware. But for me, it seems to be going okay. And we've got something that resembles a beam. But yeah, the more particles, the better it will look. But hopefully it should be okay. So let's just save this. Okay, got a little worried there. Okay, look at it go. Look at it. It's, what a light show. Jeez, it really is a light show. Far out. You can do some super cool stuff with this. Just look at that. And yeah, the reason why it's creating that effect is actually because I've got all my panels just rotated a little bit, so it creates this curve. And then when they crisscross each other, they go sort of appear to go around each other. Just very cool. And yeah, that will all depend. How they bounce will all depend on the angles. So you could animate this and have it move and stuff, which would be very cool. But yeah, you want your particles moving very fast, because the thing is with them shooting out with the particle system, if you were to have like your angle change and have it curve, you would notice the particle trail curve as well, which you probably don't really want because it's a laser, but that's just one of the flaws of the method we're using, which is a particle system. But anyway, I'm probably not making sense because I'm just talking about things that I'm not showing, but yeah, so far we do have a bunch of lasers, and that's pretty much the effect. All it is now is just tweaking stuff, how many particles we've got, how fast our particles are, how bright our material is, how big our particles are, stuff like that, which is easy to tweak. And of course the angles of our collision objects, and where our collision objects are. But yeah, it's a very interesting effect. Let's actually shorten this. So to do that, so we've got it coming out quite far. I'll actually go to our particle system. Oh, some of our particles are dispersing, which I didn't want. That's probably because it's bouncing off this and it's not quite doing it perfectly. But the other way to counteract that is, rather than have the cone there, you could just rotate all your faces to face sort of outwards, so that they just straight up are going in the right direction to begin with, rather than being dispersed by this cone. So what I mean is basically have each of your let's turn our particle system off because we can't see. There we go. And another good trick is, when you've selected something, press the full stop on the numpad and you'll track straight to it. Alright, so what I mean is, if you were to like grab this, pull it back on the y-axis, or just rotate the whole object, and now you got it facing out, and you could do that with all of them, so that right off the bat it emits it in that direction. But I think the cone is pretty cool and is working reasonably well for us, and it sort of looks cool because it starts off as a huge beam and then disperses. But yeah. Now what I was going to do is go to the emitter and actually change our lifetime, which is how long it takes for our particles to die. And as you can see, they're all dying at this point, which is the value of 50. But if we lower this, they'll actually disappear earlier along the trail. So let's maybe go to 35. So just mirror, are they going further now? What? Let's just go something extreme to see what's happening. There we go. Alright, so let's up it. Oh, we're getting close. The other thing I realized is our beam is actually very, very wide. If we see where they're all like crisscrossing it, they're happening at a very wide point and then going back out. I want them to come further into the center. So let's just actually figure out how to do that. I think it's the position of this might help. Or perhaps it's... Yeah, let's just rotate. Oh shit. Too far. Too far. No, I think we'll leave it where it is. What we'll do is we'll actually scale it on the y-axis and like squish it up or lengthen it to change the angle that it bounces off. So we'll see how that affects it. So I'll just show you what I'm doing with the other viewport. So full stop on the numpad to track to our cone. So we'll just scale this, see how it affects. Alright, I did have it narrower when I did it originally. Let me play with it for a bit. Alright guys, I figured it out. After quite a bit of fiddling, it's probably been about 20 minutes now. But that's okay. The thing is, part of it is because of the shape of my object. That's what's causing it to bounce the way it is. And of course your object might be different, and whatever object you make will make it bounce in a certain way. So what I was trying to go for is having to get all the lasers to converge toward the center. You can see they're sort of crossing each other very far out from the center. They're creating this big ring, if you guys can see that. I'll run my mouse along it. There's the ring. And I wanted that to be smaller, more in the center. Ways that I could do that, if I had actually rotated this the other way, so actually making each level of panels smaller. As you can see, as it goes out, they're actually getting bigger. If I were to make that the opposite and have the smallest one at the end where the lasers exit, that would help it become smaller as it goes. But one of the things that is making it become so wide at the end is actually the facing of my panels themselves. So if you look, each crisscross, see where it bounces. I've got about 4 bounces because I've got 4 panels. I wanted to position my cone so that it bounced 4 times. And that's another thing. The cone, the size of it will change what angle it bounces at, how far away it is. So keep those in mind as well. And I've positioned mine after some tweaking to make sure that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 bounces for each of my panels. And you can see that at each bounce, the crisscrossing circle that is created gets bigger each time. You can see the first one back here is very small, and then the next one's bigger, and then the next one's even bigger, and then the last one is bigger than that. And that is because of the facing of my panels. They're all rotated a little bit so that the beam bounces a little off center with each bounce, rather than bouncing towards the center towards each other. And you'll notice this get bigger each time. So you see the first one where we bounce off our cone to begin with, everything is going straight. So you see our bounces from our cone are straight. But then we hit our first bounce and we can see the angle gets offset. See this one coming down straight goes at an angle. And then we go up to where it bounces the second time. And we can see it gets offset, but it's already been offset. So now it's offset even more. And that is what creates the biggest circle with each level. So depending on how you arrange your panels or your object or whatever it's bouncing off of, that will determine your pattern. So perhaps if I were to grab these panels, and this is hard because I've combined it now, obviously with more preparation, I maybe could have used an array modifier, but I didn't do that. Oh well. But we'll just select all our panels. Alright, that's everything. Now if we go to individual origins up here, this is where our pivot point for our transforms are. So that's our rotate, move, and scale. If we go to individual origins, that's basically going to treat each of these separate parts, which are not connected by geometry, as a separate section and rotate it or move it or scale it accordingly. So now, if we rotate it, we'll notice each of them rotates as a separate bit. And notice I've still got something that I don't want selected. Changing the angle of these panels should give us what we want. But of course, your object is going to be different for whatever you're using. And you'll be able to make whatever pattern you like based on how the angle of your collision objects. Alright, so let's take a look. Let's move them a little more towards the center. Actually, they're already offset, so let's try and flatten them. See how we go. Actually, no, let's move them the other way so they sort of counteract a little bit. Rotate all of them. There we go. And let's see what that has done. Yes, look at that. Much smaller. Alright, let's actually do that a little more. Need to counteract it a little more. So basically what I've done is just rotate it in the opposite direction to counteract that offset of the angle. So rotate it some more. Let's see how this works. Alright, look at it go. I'll actually make it a little less exaggerated than that. I've gone a little too far in my opinion. Let's make it a little bigger. Alright, that's what we'll do. Alright, let's pause. Save. Now that we've fixed up that mess. Render. Man, it's crazy. It's so mesmerizing. You can do some really cool stuff with this. But anyway. But yeah, our laser is looking a little bit crooked. But with more particles, if you're able to, then and you don't mind not being able to render it in real time, then you would be able to add a lot more particles and have like this beam rather than a trail of single particles, which makes it look very big and blocky. You could have a bunch of smaller particles. The more particles crammed in, the better, and it will look more fine, and you'll get a smoother looking laser. But yeah, that's what we've got. Just take a look at the camera. Let's play this. Alright, save. Look at it go. And yeah, like I said, you can angle the panels however you like, and it will change the pattern. You could create some really interesting patterns if you wanted to. But yeah. And now that we've actually fixed that, and they're converging at the width that I want them to, I'm actually going to do the lifetime thing that I was talking about earlier, where I actually wanted the thing to end where they converge. There we go. Alright. That's looking interesting. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because I actually wanted... Oh, it's still going out a little too far. Man, it's so fine-tuned. Alright. That should be the one we want. Good. Now, the reason why I have them converging like that and ending there is because I actually want it to be as if the particles... Oh, geez, they're going crazy. Let's just set it so it rethinks what it's doing. There we go. I actually want to have an effect where it converges into one big beam. But that will be for another video. So this is all done in Eevee, which is great because it works in real time. So we can see it quickly and it looks pretty nice. So if you were looking to render in Eevee, you could just render it out like this. If you were going to use cycles though, I would recommend putting some bloom on it in compositing because it doesn't do that automatically like Eevee does. So let's do a quick render of that and see what it looks like in cycles. Alright, here's the results. Pretty bright as cycles actually takes into account emission shaders as light sources, so we're seeing the light actually bounce around. We'll just minimize that for a moment. Compositor Use Nodes. Clicking this checkbox just starts our node group off. So we have our input, which is our render layer, and then our output, which is our composite, which we see here. Actually, let's just open a window that will show us. Sorry, image editor is what we want, and then our render result. All right, so we've got it there. Let's add in a filter glare. All right, it's at streaks by default. I'm going to use fog glow, which just gives it a bit of a glow. So let's see what happens. If we press M, we mute the node. So yeah, we can see the difference it's having there, which is pretty cool. And you can use this with anything. So yeah, it's a pretty cool node. But yeah, that was just a quick little effect if you want to add some bloom in cycles. But just for time's sake, I'll render out a little animation in Eevee, and I'll be back with that. So I'll just show you the setup. So we'll change back to Eevee. I'll go to our 3D viewport again. And we'll set our render settings. So I'll probably go 32 samples. I don't want anything too crazy. As you can see, I'll turn on ambient occlusion. We've got our bloom turned on. We've got refraction and stream space reflections turned on. Turn half res trace off so that we get high res reflections. Don't need that. Shadows, we'll turn that up to 1K. High bit depth. It's not really that important for this scene. Don't need to bake indirect light. That should be all. Now, our output. So we'll do it in 1080p. And I'll do 30. Yeah, I'll do 30 frames. Just something quick to show it off. Alright. Yep, and we'll set PNGs. So here we have all our settings for different formats. I'm going to go with PNG. You can go with whichever image format you're comfortable with. There are also video formats. I really don't recommend rendering as a video format unless you've already got your frames ready and you're just trying to compile it into a video. From scratch, you should always render as image files to a folder, because if you crash at any point, if you're rendering as a video, it puts it all in one file, and if it crashes, it becomes unusable and you have to start from the beginning. So rendering in image format just allows you to, in case it crashes, you can continue from the frame it crashed at. Alright, so we'll just go RGB because we don't need an alpha channel. And we'll set our output. So we'll go just to the desktop. Excuse all my other work. Let's go laser beam. Anim. There we go. Stick it there. And that's where our 30 frames will go. Alright. I'll save that. And let's click render animation. Alright, so those are our 30 frames. Let's actually come into the video editor. Video sequencer. We'll go to frame 1 and Control A to add. Let's add in image sequence. So we'll go to desktop. We've got our image sequence. Laser beam, anim, add image strip. So we want to select all of them. So just press A to select all. Add image strip. There we go. Now if we go to the preview window, we'll actually see the video. Now we can see it working in real time. So then what you'd want to do is just come to the render settings, or the output settings, and you would change this to FFmpeg video, set your desired format, and you'd be able to render this out as a video. Yeah, that's an image sequence playing and it looks cool. You could add some motion blur to it too. I realized that I didn't do that. That would just make it a bit more fluid as well. It's very rigid because there's no blurring between frames, because it is a very fast moving laser. But yeah, that's it there. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. This is Daniel Bentinck, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.